What is cheaply made but sold at a ridiculous price? New build houses in the UK. Built by the lowest bidder, to the lowest standards possible. Crammed incidentally the two, detached, houses can be less than 18 inches apart. The biggest scam is that the developers try to sell the house, but retain ownership of the land that it's built on, then charge rent for the land. For this shit they want a minimum of £350,000. Leasehold really is a horrible concept. Fucking leasehold. This is the dumbest idea I've ever seen. 1 week prior to a closing in Illinois, our bank called us and said that the seller didn't disclose it was a leasehold property. It wasn't on any of the initial filings. They immediately turned our financing down. Even told us no other banks in the area would consider it and to walk away. I mean, probably ended up good for you, but in my experience, don't trust banks when they say no other bank will do something that they're not willing to do. I turned down a bank because of the hoops they wanted me to jump through for a mortgage. They promised every other bank would be the same and I wouldn't be able to get a mortgage. I had no problems whatsoever at the next bank I went to. I'll never forget learning that the movie theater I worked at paid $5 for a 24-pack of Dasani bottles. We charged $4.50 for one. The movie theater near me has a Starbucks built in with the same prices as other nearby Starbuckses. It's the cheapest drinks at the theater. The plural of Starbucks is Stars Bucks. I thought it was Starby. Movie theaters, I fully understand, but restaurants. Are you referring to chain restaurants or all restaurants? All restaurants that would offer fountain drinks. I used to go to a game store that had a decent soda fountain. You could pay $5 for unlimited soda for the night. I talked to the owner, and asked how he manages to run a profitable game store where no other game store in the neighborhood succeeded. He told me that the $5 fountain deal single-handedly gets the store to turn a profit, and the games cards he sells are only there to get customers in the door and play D&D Magic at his store. Food costs a lot, but soda is fucking pennies for the store selling it. At a certain point you'll see restaurants transition towards selling alcoholic beverages over sodas because alcoholic beverages have even higher profit margins, but naturally there's certain barriers of entry, clientele, licenses, market that just aren't there with sodas, which is why you don't see booze at every restaurant. Friend of mine invests in local businesses and his rule regarding restaurants is he will only invest if they have a liquor license. It both shows they have the competency to get one as well as an absurdly high profit margin compared with food. Printer cartridges. I was tired of my ink cartridges drying out, so I bit the bullet and got a HP Color Laser. Has worked great for years. I knew the toner was pricey, but holy moly, it was like $400 for all HP cartridges, a little more than a new printer. I rolled the dice on some cheap Chinese knockoff toner from Amazon for like $30, and seems to be fine so far. So yay, toner for laser printers too. Also upgraded to laser after my multifunction inkjet failed to scan while out of ink. WTF. Also laser won't dry up and needs to be cleaned each print. My grandmother once called me because of that. She almost never printed, but she did a shit ton of scanning, so she ended up with a combo, and one day I guess the ink cartridge expired and I had to try to do tech support with her over the phone because the damn scanner refused to scan because the printer was out of ink. The solution ended up being buying a scanner, and she only printed at the library after that. It was so weird, I ended up getting the university tech support guys trying to help figure this shit out. Out of ink. Guess I'll just buy a new printer. Out of cyan ink. Nah, I'm not going to print this black and white paper. My fucking inkjet failed to scan because it was out of ink. Yeah, I had an Epson that stopped doing anything because it was out of one color, and replacement ink was about $115. So I bought a laser printer for $75. 5 lil fun fact. The cartridge in new printers are mostly just 1/2 or 1/4 filled, sad face. Not only that, but they are programmed to think that they are less filled than they actually are. For example, with the Brother printer we got, I found that you can press 2 buttons while the lid is open, and then a secret options menu comes up, and you can reset the cartridges, and it will think they are full and you can keep on using them until they stop printing properly. When I did this, they lasted almost twice as long after I reset them as they lasted before it initially reported that they were empty. And this is where the printer industry failed. For 10 years, everyone owned a printer. Then, after putting up with this ridiculous situation, hardly anyone owns a printer. In the music industry, signable PDFs have replaced printing completely, whereas in 2010 every release and agreement was printed and/or faxed. Yes. Exactly. Man, you expressed the exact sentiment I was trying to get across in such a perfect way. I hate the whole McMansion craze, gas-guzzling Hummers and Escalades as status symbols, though I do love beautiful street racing and concept cars, etc. Yeah, I think for me it's about like an aesthetic quality that designer pieces have, not about bragging how much I spent on the piece. I would say probably 80% of my designer pieces are secondhand, 10% were gifted to me and only 10% were actually purchased by me firsthand from the manufacturer. I have a wish list on Farfetch too. What a great site, it's just so perfect for finding those unique pieces without going completely broke in the process, or at least trying not to. Also, I've really been getting into reps lately. IDK about you, but since I am really just looking for the aesthetic, I don't care too much where it comes from. Some reps can still be a bit expensive, and you have to be careful to research the factories and dealers you're buying from to make sure you're not supporting literal sweatshops or slave labor. But you can pretty easily find really high quality copies of designer items for at least half the retail price or, usually, cheaper. For example, there's a Givenchy medium Antigona rep I've been eyeing for a while now that's about $800, which is admittedly still a lot of money, but considering Givenchy sells their mini Antigonas for like $2,000 right now, I'd say $800 for a bag double the size is a pretty good deal. I discovered our fashion reps a few months ago and dude, they have such a dedicated, well-informed, and awesomely supportive community that is so passionate about fashion. I highly recommend checking it out if you're looking for any specific pieces. There's also subs for sneaker reps, reps for men, reps for women. Anyway, you totally hit the nail on the head. When it comes to fashion, at least for PPL like us, it's less about keeping up with the Joneses, and more about using designer labels to convey a personal aesthetic. Goddamn, I love fashion. I feel the same way despite the fact I truly hate every other version of keeping up with the Joneses I see. Everyone these days seems to need the biggest house, every man just has to have a 4WD and every woman just needs an SUV. Modern houses and cars are getting so big, despite average family size being smaller. Can't have those two children sitting in the back of an ordinary sized sedan, can't we? Everyone's trying to one-up each other in an endless contest for who's the busiest and who has the biggest version of everything. And #X200B. But man, I crave designer fashion. To me it's a much more personal way of expressing yourself since it's literally on you. Plus I care more about compliments on my appearance and style than I care about who likes my car or house, and some the designer stuff is really unique, and the ones that aren't and just are plain garments with the logo on it, to me are what you wear with the more exotic stuff to try and break it up a little with a piece that's more simple, yet still shows you pay attention to which fashion labels turn heads. The people who matter, those with the same interests, will see it and it could be a conversation starter that you wouldn't get out of a $10 t-shirt bought at Target. I got a huge wish list of designer items on Farfetch that's just sitting there though because I'm too scared to check out due to the fact I'm not some very fortunate trust fund kid who can just casually drop $1,000 on a pair of boots even though I really love them and know they'd go perfect with my existing stuff plus other stuff I want to get. And #X200B. Like you, I'm left amazed how certain brands manage to get to a point they can charge hundreds of dollars for a shirt with a logo on it. I get the part about people paying for it since it's a status thing, and a fashion fanatic thing, and we all have that one hobby we spend amounts on that other people would consider ridiculous, but I wonder how they got that status. They all start out as no-name brands nobody knows or cares about and somehow they made it. Makes me wonder what cheap brand that's already here today is gonna be considered luxury designer tier in several years' time. College textbooks and their second to 100th edition. What's even worse is that on some editions, Pearson just gives you your textbook without binding. Just fucking paper, like the pages are in a loose paper pile. At least they give you punched out holes so you can put them in a binder, but for fuck's sake, $130 for this shit. Cheap pricks. Oh, and having to pay like $80 for online access, that only lasts for the semester, not permanent ownership. I hope they die out soon. Honestly, the cheap bastards are going to make us pay for their book, their online portal, and the binding for a book that immediately loses its resale value upon using the access code for the online portal.